Hello, I'm Ray Bradshaw and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Monday the 5th of January. And there's big news coming out of Aberdeen.
Aberdeen have sacked manager Jimmy Thelin after a 5-match winless run. The Dons are 8th in the Scottish Premiership, and Swede Thelin, who won the Scottish Cup with Aberdeen, leaves after 18 months in charge.
Yes, there's a manager gone in the Scottish Premiership and it's not the one you think it is. Defeat by Falkirk, the last act of the Jimmy Thelin era. Meanwhile, pressure mounts on Wilfried Nancy after defeat to Rangers.
Moore comes forward and scores! 3-1 Rangers! Moore races over to the Rangers supporters and the Celtic fans start pointing fingers!
What is the future for the Celtic boss after 6 defeats out of 8? And it's an Elvis comeback as Dundee make it 3 wins in a row in the derby.
Ashley Hayes after that, and Ashley Hayes got away from Esseleg, and he scored brilliantly. What a finish! Dundee have got what they deserve.
We'll fill you in on all the weekend's action.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Yes, as ever, another exciting week in Scottish football. It's just constant, isn't it? If you listen to the podcast, you'll know we've got guests each day. Today, we're joined by Cammy Bell. Cammy, I'll give you the clubs it's given me to read out for you. I presume I'll be missing someone. Former Kilmarnock, Rangers, Dundee United, Hibs and Falkirk keeper. I noticed they've missed out Thistle. What else they missed out?
Oh, they've missed out a few in there. I don't even know, to be honest, Ray.
Were you at a game at the weekend, Cammy?
I was in the studio doing some work, so I caught quite a lot of the games, and it was an exciting weekend of football. Certainly brilliant day on Saturday to watch all the teams and all the scorelines come in.
It's funny you're saying brilliant results. I presume had maybe that 12:30 kickoff gone another way, Cammy, you might not be saying that. Let's see.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, Ray, yeah.
We're also joined by Michael Grant, the Times Scottish football correspondent. I heard him yesterday in Sports Sound. He is everywhere and anywhere at the time. Michael, I think you were at the Rangers Celtic game yesterday. On telly, it was a ridiculous game. How was it in the stand?
Yeah, ridiculous, chaotic, fascinating. It was always going to be fascinating, Ray, because it was going to kind of shape our opinions about both managers. You know, I mean, I know a lot of people have made their minds up about Wilfried Nancy already, but, you know, he had the chance to turn his reputation around a little bit yesterday. On Saturday. It didn't happen. And Danny Role has cemented his reputation and his credibility. I mean, it's incredible that the two of them, that was the first league game, first league derby for both of them. You know, I mean, and that taps into what a ridiculous season this has been of turbulence and big figures coming and going, big chairman, chief executives, sporting directors, managers at the old firm coming and going. And as we're going to talk about managers coming and going elsewhere as well.
Yeah, well, let's get into it, right? Plenty to get into with Cammy and Michael, and let's head off to Aberdeen. I think we'll all agree this podcast was going to start chatting about Wilfried Nancy until the news came out at Aberdeen last night that Jimmy Thelin, his tenureship at Aberdeen is over. The fans definitely seem to have turned on him after that defeat by Falkirk. It does seem a long time ago, Michael, as someone who's Aberdeen-minded yourself, that we were talking about, can they go for the title? That 12, 13 games unbeaten. I remember interviewing Nicky Devlin about 10, 11 games into that run, and he was so positive talking about it. For you, how do you assess his time at the Dons, and do you think they've made the right decision letting him go? I says parted company. Before you answer this, I'm fascinated by this. Cammy, I don't know if you are as well. As a journalist, how do you find out a manager's going? Because most journalists yesterday broke the story before Aberdeen put out a statement. So how's it work? Talk us through that insight first.
But listen, I mean, you get a wind of it, and you just get a mood, and you start to get texts that something is moving and something is happening, and then you might see it broken. Not usually by me, it has to be admitted, but you might see it broken, and you can tell immediately from the credibility of the source. You know, you can tell from the name that's on the story whether it's true or not. And as you say, last night the Aberdeen one came out and was kind of widely common knowledge and been discussed before the announcement. In some cases, a club will confirm that on or off the record. You know, they'll say, yeah, that's true, he's away. So if you phone the press office or a contact at the club, they'll say, yeah, it's coming. You know, the news will be confirmed soon.
That's fascinating. Cammy, when you were a player and a manager's getting punted, What was it? Were you finding out via WhatsApp groups? Would someone from the club phone you? Would you ever have any contact? How's it work?
Generally, actually, a couple of times, actually, when I was at Partick Thistle, Alan Archibald lost his job. So, again, it was just it broke in the media before we know. The media know before us, and then you then start to get a phone call or a text from the club, and then obviously then going to speak to the manager. But yeah, it's generally the media know before the players, which is crazy.
That's crazy. Let's go back to the question that I asked Michael. How do we rate Jimmy Thelин's tenureship over that time then?
Well, I was thinking about this, Ray, and for a guy who's completely unemotional and impassive, his results over a year and a half at Aberdeen were incredibly turbulent and up and down. As you say, the club started with that incredible run at the beginning of last season into November of doing what Hearts have done this season, and Hearts have sustained it so far. But all the talk that you're hearing about Hearts now was being directed at Aberdeen for the start that they had under Thelin. And he was a hot ticket, because it was like, who is this guy and what is he doing? I mean, Aberdeen's winning run lasted longer than any team in Europe last season, their start to the season. And then, of course, it didn't just decline. I mean, it fell off a cliff from November. I've always thought that when they lost 6-0 to Celtic in the semi-final of the League Cup, that did a lot of psychological harm to the players in terms of suddenly all the kind of confidence just drained out of them. And I know they did win the next league game, but pretty much from that point on, the league form never recovered. Didn't recover this season either. I think that it's something like 12 wins in 47 league games or something like that since November of 2024. Now, but in the middle of all that, you had this incredible cup campaign. They had some generous draws, but then they went and beat Hearts at Hampden in the semi-final. And then, of course, the cup final against Celtic. And in a nutshell, Ray, when you're asking how will Jimmy Thelin be remembered, it's for winning the Scottish Cup and giving a generation of supporters, the younger generation of supporters, the best day of their lives. And that's what he'll be remembered for. At the moment, there's a bit of rawness, and fans have. I think that some have turned on him. I think it's divided, and it's been reluctant to turn on him because there's such respect and affection for the guy for what he did last May, and that will be the prevailing memory of Jimmy Thelin at Aberdeen. It'll be gratitude and it'll be appreciation, but at the moment, I think a lot of supporters realise that this was a decision that probably had to come.
Yeah, I think it felt like it's been rumbling for a little while. Like, I didn't realise it was 12 out of 47. That's an incredible stat. Cammy is someone who is in the studio a lot, watching games, getting out to games for Sports Sound. What did you make of Thelин's time at Aberdeen? A bit gung-ho at points, a lot of criticism about defensively mindedly, playing Shinnie and Nielsen at the same time. What was your overall thoughts on his tenureship?
Yeah, listen, I think what Michael said there, the really inconsistent, had really good high spells. Obviously, we speak about the run that they went on, which everyone can remember. And again, everyone talking about the title, can they go and challenge? And then Michael was right. They dropped off a cliff. It was an incredible drop-off. And they haven't recovered. I've felt this season, when I've watched them at times, I feel as if they are going backwards. I really don't think they've progressed. I look at the signings, some of the signings certainly haven't worked. And yeah, I felt as if the decision had to come. Again, would the decision have came earlier if he hadn't won the cup? Absolutely, for me. I don't think he would have been there just now if they hadn't won that cup. So yeah, they were probably hanging on, hoping that he could turn this around. But I can see from the outside that it wasn't working for him at the club, and they needed to make this change because they're in a position that they absolutely shouldn't be. I mean, they're sitting in the bottom six. They're probably really... They could make the top six, absolutely could make it, but they need definitely a turnaround. So I wasn't surprised when the news came out.
And for you, Michael, where did Aberdeen turn now? I saw Peter Leaving has kind of been put in charge for now. Obviously, it's a transfer window. I think it's fair to say Aberdeen properly haven't recruited a striker since letting go of Bojan Miovski. What happens now? 2 massive Rangers games coming up. Do you have any insight into what's going to happen there?
Well, they've appointed the sporting director, Lutz Pfannenstiel, in October. Now,
so just to interrupt, this is the man that is famous for doing lots of different jobs all over the world and stole a penguin once, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, he did. I think he's a bit weary of being asked about that or having it dragged up, but yeah, we do, But he's going to be a big figure in this. I mean, he has arrived. He's a big character around the club, and his job is to recruit coaches and players for the squad. So there's no question that he's going to be a driving figure in this. Where do they look? I mean, there's two coaches in Scotland that they might look at. One's Stephen Robinson at St Mirren. It's just won the League Cup, and one's Jens Bertel Askew at Motherwell. Now, I don't know whether either of those are gettable, but I would think they could easily be on the radar, because you know how it works at all clubs. They tend to go against what they've just done, and by that I mean Aberdeen have just recruited a manager 18 months ago from a European country, so he didn't have any knowledge of Scottish football or experience of it. So you tend to see, if that doesn't work, a club tends to go the other way. Okay. Now, I don't know. I mean, Lutz is new into the club, and he might be a big enough figure to say, no, I've got contacts in Germany, or I've got contacts whatever. This guy could do it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they look close at home this time.
And Cammy, for you, do you ever see a managerial appointment like this go sour, the person gets sacked? Are you straight into your phone book to text people to see if they're applying for the job? How's it work?
Yeah, listen, I think when you look where Aberdeen will go, I think Michael's right. It'll be interesting to see, because they have went outside the box with Jimmy Thelin coming into the club. And do they look back home? Stephen Robinson's been touted for a number of jobs now. He's never ever moved away. Obviously, he's been at Motherwell previously, but since he's been at St Mirren, done very, very well. He's never got one of them jobs. Obviously, he was touted for the Hearts job. So yeah, listen, is it his time? When you look at where St Mirren are this season, could it be the right time for him to move if Aberdeen come calling? So I think it's fascinating the way that Aberdeen will go, and I think they'll need to move pretty quickly, because we're in the January transfer window. You're going to have to bring in new recruits. So yes, I know they've got a sporting director there, but you would still want a head coach or a manager to certainly have their say within the players that come into the club.
Yeah, it's just, even as you were saying that about Stephen Robinson, how long ago does it feel that Jim Goodwin made that same move from St Mirren to Aberdeen? That feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Okay. Yeah, there's a danger of just going for the kind of hot, the current manager of the flavour of the month now. And I don't mean that about Stephen Robinson, because he's got a fairly
brilliant track record.
Yeah, he's got a body of work in Scotland, so it's not fair to call him the flavour of the month. But you know what I mean? He's just won the Scottish Cup, so he's probably an easier sell now to the Aberdeen supporters than he might have been even a couple of months ago.
Let's turn to Saturday's Old Firm match. So I think, Cammy, the question on anyone's lips is Wilfried Nancy going to survive this? I personally was flabbergasted that we've not heard from anything now. 6 losses out of 8 games. Celtic have now shipped 18 goals under Nancy, more than Livingston have conceded in that appearance for bottom of the league. I mean, it's a harsh question, Cammy, but do you feel he just doesn't get what being a Celtic manager means?
Yeah, listen, I'm amazed that he's not gone yet. Is it the type of business that Celtic do straight away? Probably not. So, but he's got to go for me. I just don't think it's working for him and Celtic at the moment. As you mentioned, 18 goals is just incredible. I think they only conceded 26 last season to win the league. So that shows you the levels and where they're at the moment. It's just unacceptable. 18 goals for Celtic to concede. They're so wide open in every single game. You look back at the Motherwell game, the Livingston game. Livingston are sitting bottom of the league. They could have scored 4 easily on that occasion. And it's just been so poor, so disappointing. Yes, we've seen flashes of them going forward, looking good in patterns of play and creating opportunities. But if you can't defend, you won't win games of football. So I feel like he doesn't get it. He really doesn't get it. He certainly looks like a man under pressure now. I felt like that when I seen his press conference before the game. He was certainly under pressure, and he was feeling the pressure at that moment. And listen, it's been turned up 10 notches since then by getting beat by Rangers. So it'll be fascinating the days ahead.
Yeah, before we get Michael's thought on it, who was at the game, Cammy, take your goalkeeping union hat off. Should Kasper Schmeichel save that shot for Mikey Moore?
Yeah, a goalie of his quality should, to be honest. I know there's a slight deflection, and that plays a part in where the ball ends up. Totally does, and it makes it more difficult for Casper. But I think he'll look back and be honest with himself that he should have done better. But listen, you can't just blame the goalkeeper, because there was so many errors defensively for Celtic. I mean, certainly Termiti's goal, when Trusty doesn't go and engage him, I just thought that was bizarre and amazing that he didn't go towards the ball. So yeah, listen, you can pick bones at Celtic because they were so poor defensively.
Because, Michael, you were at the game. I watched it on telly. When you look at it, Celtic were all over Rangers in that first half and went 1-0 in, and we'd be gutted about it. A lot has been made out of Johnny Kenny missing chances, but for me, that Austin Trusty header from the corner where he could pick any spot and he still doesn't score. Yes, Danny Rowe changed at half-time. Asgard was pretty ineffective apart from getting a booking. He brings on Diamande, and all of a sudden the game changes. 3 goals. Celtic looked pretty toothless. It showed their lack of recruitment, bringing in no strikers when Johnny Kenny went off. I think Shin came on and they moved players about. It just didn't make sense. But do you think, because we're talking so much about Wilfried Nancy, and I myself am guilty of this, Michael, do you think we shouldn't lose sight of how well Danny Rowe has done? Because the Rangers haven't been brilliant, but they've been churning out games. And I think it was interesting post-match. You could see the difference between the two managers. One of them says results is all that matters, Danny Rowe, and Nancy's talking about the style of play. Whereas if you're a Rangers or a Celtic fan in that situation, for those games, you don't care how you play. You just want the 3 points. So for you, is Danny Rowe doing a good job there?
Absolutely, and if you remember, there was a lot of scepticism about Danny Rowe when he came in, and people were saying, "Oh, he's Russell Martin 2.0," you know, and same kind of backgrounds. You know, it's broadly comparable profile in terms of age and in terms of experience, and you know, having his best work coming in the English Championship, and you know, was he going to be able to handle Rangers? I mean, supporters wanted Steven Gerrard, and then they wanted Kevin Muscat. There was never that kind of level of enthusiasm for Danny Rowe, but that's changed now, you know, and that's to his credit. He has come in, he's been sure-footed. What the weekend result did for him was give him a first kind of statement win. You know, they'd lost to Celtic in the League Cup semi. They'd lost to Hearts when they went to Tynecastle, big game. You know, Europe hasn't been as effective for him as the domestic results. But yesterday was the weekend was a big result for him. And also the manner of it. You're right, they did get outplayed in the first half. And you might say, well, maybe in hindsight he didn't pick the right team because they were better when he changed it. But it's a sign of a good coach and an intelligent and shrewd coach to be able to change a game, to see how it's going, to see what he might have to do to change things. I still think Rangers are limited. I think Celtic are exceptionally limited, but Rangers have got a bit of momentum behind them at the moment, and they feel like they're growing as a team under Danny Rowe. And let's see how the board backs him in January and whether he's got judgment in the transfer market, because he'll need to show that as well. But I thought that was a really, really good and important and significant day for him at the weekend.
Yeah, and Yusuf Chumiti, the unlikely hero. Quickly, Michael, do you think there's a striker in there?
If you'd asked me this a couple of months ago, I would have said no, because I hadn't seen it. He just looked clumsy. He didn't look to have much about him other than the kind of physique. But I thought he was really impressive. I mean, even in the first half, the goal that was disallowed, the Mikey Moore goal, he took that ball well. Okay, he was offside, but he took the ball well and he kind of held his position before releasing the pass. He took the 2 goals really well, attacking the near post for the equaliser, and then a solo effort. Listen, I mean, the Celtic defence parted for him, didn't it? But you know, he still had to show strength and running power, and then a finish, and he did it.
Yeah, final word on Rangers we'll put to the former Rangers player Cammy. We're 5th of January. Give us a yes or a no. Do Rangers finish above Celtic in the league this season?
Yes.
Great. Let's clip that up and play it back in May. I can't wait. Let's head to Dundee, where Ashley Hayes' goal was the difference in the Dundee derby. 3 wins in a row for Dundee now. Stephen Presley's side, a completely different beast to they were in the early part of the season. United were poor after a positive run. Jim Goodwin, I saw a couple of fans say online he's struggling to get the best out of his squad this season. Cammy, for that game, Do you think it was a fair win for Dundee, or do you think United were unlucky?
No, yeah, I actually think Dundee probably deserved their win. They had some good opportunities. Again, they maybe could have stretched that lead. They'd be happy. McCracken made a brilliant save with his right hand down low from a volley. I think it was Ferry that possibly volleyed it. But again, both teams had their moments. It was a brilliant goal from Dundee as well. Very well finished off. It was poor defending from Dundee United. I think Camera got caught up and flicked it on, and then the ball ends up, it's a foot race, and the Dundee United defender slides in, doesn't clear the ball, and it's a 1v1 with the goalie, and he finishes it brilliantly. So listen, you've got to give Dundee full credit. I think momentum, confidence, that's what you're seeing now with Dundee. That the 3 wins in a row has made a massive difference to them. It's almost taken them away from this relegation battle, because again, they've been in it all season and they've put 3 wins back to back together, and now they're looking forward. They're not even looking behind them, because Kilmarnock and Livingston are so isolated at the bottom now that I think Dundee will just be looking forward. And Stephen Presley, you can see him, he looks a different person. You can tell the pressure's come off him a little bit, and it was a brilliant win. The Derby win will give them all sorts of confidence going forward.
Yeah, and quickly, Cammy, one of your former teams, Kilmarnock's up to a 14th game without a win, losing 3-1 at home to Hibs. Chris Doolan, the legend of my life, the interim manager down there, they really need something to happen quickly. Do you think things are looking bleak down there?
Yeah, very bleak, Ray. I think they need to get a manager in the door. I know there's managerial candidates getting thrown about at the moment. They're having interviews this week, and I think they'll be desperate to get somebody in before that Livingston game next weekend, because that is a massive game for Kilmarnock. There's no getting away from it. That's their biggest game of the season. By far, because they need to turn this around. Their form's been really poor. They've been poor on the pitch. I think the squad's very poor at this moment in time as well. A lot of fans are saying it is a championship squad, but they need to find something. They've got a January transfer window. Can the board throw some money at it? But they need to get a manager in the door desperately.
Yeah, I feel like you're one of the very few football pundits we have in this podcast that hasn't been linked with that job. It definitely seems to be the way it's happening all the time. Michael, as someone who is regularly employed by the BBC, I am very aware of the allegations of West Coast bias constantly coming through. I feel we need to address the fact that we're now 20 odd minutes into this podcast and we're about to talk about the league leaders' Hearts. That feels unfair as a team who've gone 6 points clear. However, Jimmy Thelin going did change the running order. So Hearts fans, 1-0 win over Livingston. I was driving at Dundee Firhill early to go to a gig on Saturday, and then I was listening to Sports Sound, and it felt tense. You know, when you can hear that through the radio. 1-0 win, that's all they really needed to do, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Listen, any team that wins the league has got days like that in it. You know, 1-0 wins, scratchy, impressive for the first half, could have been 2 or 3 up. They never got to that, and then they're kind of hanging on. And Yengi had a couple of chances for Livingston, could have gotten away from them, could have been an equaliser, could have been dropped points, but they didn't. They won it 1-0. Derek McKenna said later, sometimes 1-0's enough. There's going to be, if they're going to last the course in this season, there's going to be other days like this. It's not all beating Rangers and Celtic and winning a derby or the fire and brimstone of a derby. Sometimes it's kind of ugly and uncomfortable and all of that. But the bottom line is they're 6 points clear at the top of the league, Ray, and we're into the second half of the season now. All season long people have been going, as they did about Aberdeen last year. It's once they meet the Old Firm, or once they have the derby, or next month they'll find them out. And it hasn't happened so far. They had a wobble before Christmas, but they've generally recovered from it. And again, going into January, they've been sharp with their recruitment. They've got the boy, the Dutch fullback played.
Got an assist
at the weekend. Got an assist. Looked effective straight away. Chesnikov, the winger, seems to be coming as well. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about that for a long time, but he's on his way, I think. So they don't hang about Hearts, and the recruitment. I think if you asked anybody in football, who's got the most impressive recruitment operation at the moment, people would say Hearts, Jamestown Analytics, and that gives them a boost in January, when otherwise you might say, well, Rangers and Celtic can spend more money, they'll get better players in. Well, yeah, they can spend more money, but maybe Hearts are the sharpest recruiters in the business.
Yep, definitely. And Cammy, to round out Scottish Premiership. We mentioned Kelly losing. That was 3 wins in the bounce for Hibs, who looked to have found their mojo again. And talking of mojo, Motherwell beat St Mirren. Jens Bertolaska's team just keep on winning. How far do you think both those teams, Hibs and Motherwell, can go?
I genuinely think that Motherwell, looking at Motherwell and Hibs, they can push the teams above them. The teams above them aren't far away from them. Motherwell, certainly the confidence they're playing with, the style of football they're playing, even the games they lost at Ibrox, they lost against Rangers, they could have took points out of that game quite easily. And again, just Saturday, you almost just expect them to win. I think when you look at Massimo Wiesi's goal, it was a brilliant goal. They've got him back from the AFCON. And obviously, Elliot Watt, for me, what a player he is. He's a fantastic find for Motherwell. For me, he's probably been certainly Motherwell's player of the season, but he's just a quality player to watch. I think the style suits him. But yeah, listen, they're so exciting to watch. I really do think they can really push the top teams above them, and they're fearing absolutely nobody at this moment in time.
It's just exciting, isn't it? Scottish football's been brilliant this season, and I can't believe we've got all the way through the podcast without mentioning a Tony Watt 94th minute winner, but that's the BBC bias against the Championship, I'd guess. Despite the fact that producer and myself both support teams in that league. That's all we got time for. Many thanks to Cammy and Michael, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. It's another jam-packed week of Scottish football. Keep in touch. The podcast is here every day, so make sure you tune in. Enjoy your week and enjoy your first day back at work, hopefully. Bye-bye.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.